What if your thoughts are not entirely your own? Most people think they are the absolute masters of their choices, their emotions, and their destinies. They believe that if someone tries to control them, they will see it coming from a mile away. They watch out for loud threats, open aggression, or obvious ultimatums. But the disturbing truth is that the most dangerous forms of control are completely invisible. They do not shatter your will. They gently redirect it. Few people realize that they are currently operating under psychological scripts written by master manipulators in their immediate social circle, be it a partner, a boss, or even a close friend. You are being pushed, pulled, and subtly steered, all while falsely believing you are acting on your own free will. Every day you remain blind to these hidden dynamics. You leave yourself completely exposed to emotional exploitation, betrayal, and psychological exhaustion. You willingly hand over the keys to your inner citadel to individuals who look at your empathy and see an opportunity. Marcus Aurelius once delivered a profound piece of wisdom. Mischief is a continuous, fluid force, and the mind that does not guard its inputs will quickly become a slave to outer impressions. The ancient Stoics knew that true freedom is not the absence of physical chains, but the absolute mastery of your own mental fortress. If you do not learn to recognize the subtle psychological traps designed to hijack your nervous system, your life will never truly belong to you. In this video, we will uncover the 5 dark psychology tricks used to control you, deploying the unshakable shield of Stoicism and the profound insights of Carl Jung to expose the hidden mechanisms of human manipulation. The 5 dark psychology tricks are: the manufactured emergency and false urgency. Imagine receiving a sudden chaotic wave of panic from someone close to you. A friend calls out of nowhere, claiming their life is completely falling apart and they need your immediate intervention. Or a manager at work drops a massive, unexpected crisis on your desk right before you are about to leave, insisting that the entire company's future rests on your shoulders tonight. Most people completely misunderstand this pattern as an unavoidable twist of fate. They view it through the lens of empathy, telling themselves that the other person is simply overwhelmed and genuinely needs an emergency savior. The hidden psychological truth is that this crisis is often a highly calculated, artificial construct designed to bypass your logical brain. When a manipulator creates a state of intense, sudden urgency, your survival brain takes over, flooding your system with adrenaline and anxiety. In this heightened emotional state, your critical thinking entirely shuts down. You stop evaluating whether the request is fair, reasonable, or respectful. You simply react to stop the emotional noise. It is an intentional strategy to force a rapid compliance that you would normally refuse if you had the time to sit in calm reflection. Look closely at the recurring dynamics in your life. Consider a romantic partner who constantly invents a fresh, dramatic argument or personal meltdown, precisely when you are preparing to focus on an important business milestone or your own self-improvement routine. Consider a family member who always presents their financial disasters as immediate, life-or-death situations that only your hard-earned savings can resolve right this second. The ancient Stoic master Seneca warned extensively about the extreme danger of letting other people's chaotic storms disturb your internal serenity. He observed that an unmanaged mind will easily catch the emotional infections of those around it. When a manipulator utilizes false urgency, they are deliberately attempting to pull you out of your Stoic center. They want to turn you into a reactive instrument that they can play to serve their own immediate agenda, leaving your peace of mind utterly devastated in the process. 2. The isolation through subtle poisoning. Have you ever noticed a close companion slowly, systematically casting doubt on the intentions of every other person in your life. They don't do it with explosive demands or harsh prohibitions. Instead, they drop quiet, seemingly protective remarks. They observe a mutual friend and say, "Did you see how they looked at you when you mentioned your promotion? I don't think they genuinely care about your success." Most people severely misunderstand this behavior. They perceive it as a beautiful sign of profound loyalty, ultimate devotion, and deep protective love. They tell themselves that this person is the only one who truly has their back in a cruel world. The dark reality behind this behavior is a calculated campaign of psychological containment. The manipulator knows that as long as you are surrounded by a strong, grounded support system of friends, family, and independent mentors, you are incredibly difficult to control. If you have clear-minded allies, they will instantly point out the manipulator's toxic behavior. Therefore, to make you entirely compliant, they must isolate you from any external reality checks. They poison your social circle from behind closed doors, planting tiny, insidious seeds of paranoia until you willingly detach from the very people who could save you. You see this play out frequently in highly toxic romantic relationships and hyper-competitive workplaces. A partner might slowly convince you that your family is overly intrusive and toxic, gradually stretching the distance between you and your parents until you no longer speak. At work, a manipulative peer might quietly whisper rumors to you about your teammates' hidden agendas, successfully preventing you from forming strategic alliances that could advance your career. Carl Jung's profound theory of the shadow explains that when a person cannot master their own deep-seated insecurities, they project their own internal darkness onto everyone else. The manipulator accuses your circle of being deceptive because deception is their own native language. By isolating you, they ensure that they become your sole source of validation, truth, and direction. Once you are locked inside their isolated echo chamber, your independence ceases to exist. 3. The intermittent reward system. The human mind is deeply addicted to predictability, but it is utterly enslaved by unpredictability. A classic dark psychology tactic relies on providing intense affection, praise, and validation, followed by sudden, completely unprovoked coldness and withdrawal. Most people misunderstand this devastating emotional roller coaster. When the manipulator goes cold, the victim assumes they have committed a terrible mistake. They dedicate all their energy to overanalyzing their past behavior, wondering, what did I do wrong? How can I bring back the loving, supportive person they were last week? The hidden psychological mechanism at play here is identical to the mathematics of a slot machine. If a slot machine paid out every single time you pulled the lever, you would quickly lose interest. But because the payout is completely random and unpredictable, your brain releases massive surges of dopamine every time a reward finally appears. By alternating between warm validation and cold, emotional starvation, the manipulator creates a severe psychological dependency. You become completely obsessed with chasing their approval, transforming your baseline state into a perpetual hunt for their fleeting warmth. Consider an ambitious workplace dynamic where a superior praises your work ethic to the skies one day, making you feel like a rising star, only to completely ignore your presence and criticize your basic competence the following week without explanation. Consider a friend who showers you with deep intimacy and intense texts for a month, then suddenly disappears for weeks, leaving your messages on read until they decide to return on their own terms. Friedrich Nietzsche spoke profoundly about the nature of power, observing that those who wish to command others will often exploit the natural psychological hunger for stability. The intermittent reward system is designed to break your emotional intelligence and keep you perpetually off balance. By making their approval a rare, unpredictable commodity, they ensure that your entire self-worth becomes directly tied to their shifting whims. You stop focused execution on your own life mission because you are too busy trying to decipher their emotional weather. 4. The weaponization of strategic empathy. There is a highly sophisticated form of control that presents itself as ultimate understanding. A manipulator will enter your life as a deep, incredibly attentive listener. They will encourage you to open up about your deepest emotional wounds, your past failures, your biggest childhood traumas, and your hidden insecurities. Most people perceive this as a rare, soulful connection. They feel deeply validated, deeply seen, and profoundly understood, believing they have found an authentic sanctuary in a cold world. The dark truth is that this is a highly strategic intelligence-gathering mission. A master manipulator does not listen to heal you. They listen to map out your psychological architecture. Every trauma you confess, every insecurity you voice, and every fear you reveal is quietly noted down to be used as emotional ammunition later. The moment you attempt to set a boundary, voice an objection, or stand up for your self-respect, they will casually, subtly inject your past vulnerabilities into the conversation to disarm your defense. This manifests frequently in close relationships and family dynamics. You might have shared with a partner that your greatest fear is being abandoned, and the moment a disagreement occurs, they casually drop comments like, "If you keep pushing this issue, maybe we just shouldn't be together anymore." Or a friend who knows you struggle with social anxiety will intentionally drop a passive-aggressive remark about your awkwardness in front of a group, completely shattering your confidence right when you need it most. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus famously stated that no man can harm you unless you invite them into your judgment of the situation. But when you hand over your unhealed traumas to a manipulator without discernment, you are giving them the exact blueprints to your emotional triggers. They weaponize your empathy to make you feel fundamentally flawed, ensuring that you remain entirely defensive, compliant, and easy to steer. 5. Shifting the moral high ground. Have you ever gathered the courage to confront someone about an undeniable act of disrespect, only to leave the conversation feeling like you are the one who needs to apologize? You approach them with clear evidence of a broken promise or a betrayal, and within 5 minutes, the entire narrative has been twisted. Most people misunderstand this jarring experience as a simple difference in perspective. They tell themselves that perhaps they were indeed too harsh, too sensitive, or too demanding in their approach. The hidden psychological strategy here is a total inversion of reality, a radical shifting of the moral high ground. The manipulator knows that the best defense is an aggressive, absolute offense. Instead of answering for their actions, they will immediately attack your character, your tone, or your timing. They will make the entire argument about how you brought up the issue, completely burying the original betrayal under a mountain of manufactured moral outrage. Consider a scenario where you discover a friend has been gossiping about you behind your back. When you confront them, they don't deny it. Instead, they burst into tears and accuse you of being paranoid, untrusting, and a terrible friend for snooping around their business. At work, an associate might steal your original idea and present it as their own, and when you address it, they accuse you of being uncollaborative, selfish, and a poor team player who doesn't care about the collective company vision. Marcus Aurelius consistently reminded himself to view human behavior with absolute, cold objectivity, stripping away the emotional theater that people use to hide their sins. Shifting the moral high ground is a classic deflection technique designed to make you swallow your own grievances. By forcing you into a state of guilt and self-doubt, the manipulator successfully escapes all accountability, leaving you too emotionally exhausted to ever question their actions again. The psychology behind this. To completely immunize yourself against these dark psychology tricks, you must understand the underlying primitive machinery of the human psyche. People who deploy these tactics are not operating from a position of true strength. They are operating from a place of profound internal fracture. The driving force behind the desire to manipulate and control others is an agonizing lack of genuine self-worth, deep-seated insecurity, and a desperate fear of vulnerability. The manipulator's ego is incredibly fragile. They view the social world not as a space for mutual cooperation, but as a hyper-competitive, predatory landscape where you are either the master or the slave. Because they lack the authentic capability, discipline, or character to earn respect and status naturally, their subconscious mind resorts to subversion. Control is their psychological shield. If they can keep you anxious, isolated, addicted to their approval, and riddled with self-doubt, they protect themselves from ever being exposed or abandoned. They project their own internal chaos and unhealed emotional wounds onto your reality because they cannot bear the weight of their own shadow. Understanding this truth doesn't mean you tolerate their behavior. It means you stop taking their actions personally. Their manipulation is a loud, undeniable confession of their own weakness. How to respond? When you detect these 5 dark psychology tricks operating in your environment, you must instantly engage your absolute stoic shield. Here are 5 powerful, unshakable actions to reclaim your absolute sovereignty. First, practice voluntary emotional delay. The moment someone attempts to trigger you with a manufactured emergency or sudden outrage, force a pause. Do not react immediately. Take a deep breath and sit in absolute silence. When you refuse to give an instant emotional payout, you completely dismantle their strategy. Your calm is their ultimate defeat. Second, never over-explain your choices. Manipulators thrive on your descriptions, your justifications, and your defensive arguments, using them as fresh hooks to pull you back into the trap. If you need to say no to an unreasonable demand, say it clearly, politely, and firmly, without providing a long list of excuses. "No, I cannot do that," is a complete sentence that requires no further defense. Third, maintain an invisible perimeter around your personal history. Be highly discerning about who you trust with your deepest vulnerabilities, past traumas, and unhealed wounds. Let people earn your trust slowly through consistent, verifiable actions over time, rather than handing over your psychological blueprints to anyone who shows superficial interest. Fourth, set non-negotiable boundaries with immediate consequences. If someone attempts to shift the moral high ground or cross an explicit boundary, do not engage in a prolonged debate. Clearly state the boundary once, and if they choose to cross it, immediately remove your presence and your attention from the dynamic. Let your actions do the talking. Fifth, commit entirely to your personal mission. The absolute best defense against any form of psychological control is an intensely focused, highly disciplined life. When you are deeply immersed in building your business, mastering your health, and fortifying your mind, you naturally become completely unbothered by the petty emotional games of insecure individuals. Modern relevance. This ancient battle for mental sovereignty has reached a critical, unprecedented peak in our modern world. We live in a highly digitized society, completely optimized around the attention economy, where manipulation has been weaponized on an algorithmic scale. Social media platforms are deliberately engineered using intermittent reward systems and manufactured outrages to keep our brains in a perpetual state of reactive anxiety. This digital landscape has amplified the proliferation of dark psychology tricks in everyday human relationships. Comparison culture has made people intensely insecure, driving them to use subversion to maintain a sense of social status. Emotional intelligence is no longer just a useful self-help concept. It is an absolute requirement for psychological survival. If you do not consciously build a stoic shield around your mind today, your attention, your emotions, and your choices will be stolen from you every single hour. Powerful ending. You now possess a rare, highly potent form of psychological awareness. You see past the superficial theater of human interactions, recognizing the invisible strings that move average people across the social chessboard. You are no longer a blind participant in these hidden dynamics. You are an objective observer, equipped with unshakable clarity. Never look at the manipulators in your environment with bitterness or anger. Anger is an admission that they still hold power over your emotional state. Instead, look at them through the cold, steady eyes of a stoic master, recognizing their toxic games as the frantic, desperate survival strategies of a weak ego. As you move forward into the world, let the fierce self-reliance of Friedrich Nietzsche and the absolute discipline of Marcus Aurelius guide your every interaction. Your mind is your sacred kingdom, and no one can enter it without your explicit permission. Let this final, profound truth from Epictetus settle deeply into your soul. Any person who can capably anger you becomes your master. They can anger you only when you permit yourself to be disturbed by them. Stand tall inside your inner citadel, guard your attention with an iron will, and let the unshakable power of your silence shatter every attempt to control your destiny.